I got to do better than this.
Lights out.
Sacking the cornerback is just like you devastate a city, or you cream a multitude of people. I mean, it's just like you put all the offensive players in one bag, and I just take a baseball bat and beat on the bag. So each time he came over there, I tried to tear his damn head off. Let's play some football. Let's play some football.
The pressure is on. This is Off the Edge on Tide 100.9.
Focus on what you want to do, what you want to accomplish. Think about that. Don't think about how you feel, how tired you are, how hot it is. You got to push yourself on the field like when you're playing football.
It's my honor to present the national championship trophy to Coach Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide.
To me, this is the ultimate team. All these guys bought into everything they needed to do to be the best players that they could be. There's more togetherness on this team than almost any team that we've ever had. And they had to overcome and persevere so much adversity through this season, and they've done it magnificently. And I'm so proud of this group for what they've been able to accomplish and going undefeated and winning the national championship.
Streaming live on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and the Tide 100.9 app. Here is your host of Off the Edge, Jacob Harrison.
Your man overthrown. Spit out the ball.
Hello there, welcome into Off the Edge. I am your host, Jacob Harrison. So glad you could be with us on a beautiful Monday evening as we get further and further into the springs. My allergies continue to betray me and make me miserable. So, you know, it's the worst time of the year, but we will make it through it and enjoy some sports talk analysis tonight. We're going to dive into a lot of what's going on with the Alabama defense. When I got home today, you know, it's the off season, so you kind of have to look and create the content for yourself. So I got home and turned on some Henry To'oTo'o film, and just my mind was blown at how explosive this guy is. Heard all the chatter that's been going on about Josh Jobe after the Senior Bowl director Jim Nagy heaped some praise on him, said, you know, this is the next big DB to come out of Alabama. So I flipped on the tape with him to see what's good, what's going on with him, the positives to take away out of his game, because oftentimes he's the guy that gets the negative rap. So we'll see how he's going to transition into being the number one shutdown corner. All that, so much more. We're also going to, simp over Will Anderson, because that's what we do on this show, Off the Edge. It's not complete without just drooling over how incredible of a player Will Anderson is. But we'll look at some reasons why he's so good and why he might be the best pass rusher in the SEC, period, despite only being a true sophomore. All that, so much more. Fits for Dylan Moses, for Najee Harris, how Najee's winning over the city of Pittsburgh. Tim Tebow, the way that's going to work out. We'll discuss that and more. But before we get into anything, do have to remind you that this show is brought to you by Alabama Vintage, AlabamaVTG.com. Tommy is prepping up that brand new Braves hat that he got at Alabama Vintage. So it's not just Alabama Crimson Tide apparel. You can find vintage stock items of all kinds, from all brands, from all professions, from all sports. Tommy has racked up quite the collection of Braves and Jeff Gordon hats. I've picked up some stuff as myself, a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan. So, of course, every time there's a Steelers memorabilia item in there, I go and pick it up. Got my kid a Peyton Manning's Colts jersey. There's all sorts of stuff in there. But for the Crimson Tide diehards that need something to flesh out that collection, to bring some old school pride into it, Charlie will hook you up, man. He has got stuff from the Paul Bear Bryant era, stuff from the Gene Stallings era, from the early Nick Saban era, and everything in between and beyond. So Whether it's on your person or in your home, Charlie can deck you out in some incredible Crimson Tide gear. Check them out, alabamavtg.com for the online store, and be sure to follow them on Instagram for those special items that will sell quickly, as well as the many sales that Charlie will cook up from time to time. So, all things being equal, it's the off season for football, which is what drives this show because that's my passion. That's what I care about. But Tide 100.9 is the home of Alabama Crimson Tide sports for a reason. And I would be remiss if I didn't start the show with the biggest news, with the biggest reaction to one of the most amazing things that I've seen in Alabama Crimson Tide sports. And that being what happened at the Rhodes House over the weekend in softball. Those girls put on an absolute clinic. And anybody that watched that and didn't come away just amazed, whether you're, a smaller fan of the sport or you're one of the most passionate guys out there that's in the Roadhouse every single week. What Montana Fouts pulled off in 3 games is legendary. Not just at Alabama, not just in the SEC, but for the entire sport. Bailey Hemphill, what she pulled off, 61 home runs in her career, and she's only had 11 this year, which really speaks to how much she could have crushed that record if pitchers weren't so afraid of her, because she had 45 walks by the end of the SEC tournament. And there's more to come as the national championship bracket gets underway. I can't help but marvel at what Montana Fouts pulled off, though, because we know that there's the fear of load management in football because nobody wants to see that. Then there's the problem with load management in professional basketball. Nobody wants to see that. People save up tons of money to go see their heroes play basketball, and they might just sit out, right? Well, in baseball, it's part of it because pitching a ball is so difficult. It's so unbelievably difficult, and it will wear you down in a heartbeat. The problem is when your pitching depth has been decimated over the course of a season and your best player is your pitcher, you got to turn to her. And give it up for Coach Murph for sticking her out there and letting her go to work. I know there was that one third inning where she got pulled and things went south really quick against Tennessee, but she got back in there and didn't skip a beat. Destroyed the SEC tournament record for strikeouts in a single tournament. The first complete game shutout in an SEC tournament in 15 years. Ties the record for most strikeouts in a single tournament game. Yeah, that'll win you SEC tournament MVP. That'll do it real quick. Even when your teammate nails home a 2-run homer to seal the victory against Tennessee, to ensure that you could go on to play Florida, who beat you twice earlier in the season, and you go out there and you shut out the Gators. And I said it on Saturday Morning Showdown, talking with Bryant and Dom, how the small ball effort from Alabama was a little bit concerning because Florida had weapons that could go out there and just bomb that thing. And when you're watching the game, and I'm learning, I'm paying attention to these commentators. They get paid the big bucks for a reason. And they're talking about how this rise ball is so deadly for Montana Fouts, but the danger in it is somebody gets a piece of it, it's out of here. It's real easy to send those things out. And nonetheless, going up against these heavy hitters for the Gators in their football jerseys that weren't very aesthetic, without a doubt, Montana Fouts just absolutely killed this thing. And it was incredible to see, incredible to watch. I don't keep up with the diamond sports as well as I probably should. But a few years ago, Montana Fouts' freshman year, when I was still at the University of Alabama as a student, for one of my sports writing classes, I was put on the beat for the softball team. And I'm a big guy. I'm 6'3", 280 pounds. I'm big, right? I'm not easily, intimidated by other people. Montana Fouts is an imposing figure because she's as tall as I am. And she's stoic. And she's got poise. She's got character. She's a great person, a great teammate, and a great leader. And when she's in the circle, she has a vendetta to go out there and prove that she's the best out there. Because remember, she wasn't even in the conversation for SEC Player of the Year. Last year, she had, without a doubt, her worst season of the 3 that she's been through. And as a junior, good Lord, help anybody that has to get on the plate in front of Montana Fouts next year as a senior. This Crimson Tide team is special, man. And I think it's a shame, first of all, to have watched the Oklahoma State game and hear how easy Oklahoma's schedule was, how easy their tear through the tournament in the Big 12 was, for Alabama to be a 3 seed after having to battle in the SEC, take their lumps and bruises, take some L's that were difficult to swallow, and then go on an absolute tear, a 14-game winning streak to close out and win the SEC championship, the first time since 2012. That's impressive, man. And you got to tip your hat. You got to give a hand to the Alabama softball team because they have a chance to go very, very far in the NCAA softball tournament as well, which will take place in the Rhodes House for the Crimson Tide this weekend, Friday, May 21st, 5 p.m. Central on the SEC Network in the Praise Studio here behind me, 93.3. You can listen to the game here in T-Town versus Alabama State. Clemson and Troy on the other side of the bracket, so Alabama will play the winner of that game. Would expect it to be Clemson. Troy's not a bad team, but Alabama does have regular season victories over Alabama State and Troy, and man, they've been dominant on this run. We'll say the number one thing for this team, I think moving forward, deeper into the tournament, is finding that pitching depth again. You've got to be willing to turn to other arms and turn to other hands so that you have Montana at her absolute peak performance late in the tournament. And I think that you can get Cornball back into the rotation, get these other pitchers back into the rotation, and feel confident about them. Get their confidence back up, and go on and win a natty, man. Coach Murph deserves it. Montana Fout, Haley Hemphill, Kaylee Tao, all the KB Sides, all these girls deserve it, man. They put in the work, and they've went on and dominated the rest of this SEC schedule. And I've done nothing but marvel at it from afar and kept up from it from afar. But now, keeping an eye on it here in the postseason, can't be more proud of my alma mater to be dominating the SEC the way it is and just proving how rich Tuscaloosa is when it comes to championships. Nothing is too big for these athletes. Give it up to Greg Byrne for instilling a community here at Tuscaloosa that is all about winning championships, all about building great character and leadership. Because say what you will, you could go out and you could cheat your way to the top. You could create an environment where it's very selfish. You could go out and create an environment where it's win at all cost. And Alabama doesn't do that. Alabama wins with class. Alabama wins with pride. Alabama wins with respect. Most importantly, Alabama wins all the damn time. And nothing stops the Crimson Tide in the postseason. So congrats to the Alabama softball team. The work is not finished, though. We love SEC championships here in T-Town. We like natties more. Continue to put Tuscaloosa on the map. We'll take our first break. Hey, there's no guests tonight, so phone lines are open throughout the night. 205-342-9904. You can always join the show that way. You can always join us in the streams as well. If you're about to be home, you want to check out the rest of the show, you can always hop on over to Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, search up Off the Edge at Off the Edge 109, and join us on any of those platforms. Drop us a like, drop us a follow, drop us a subscribe, and join the show in the comment section as well. We'll take a break, come back and dive into some of these defensive key pieces for the 2021 Crimson Tide defense that I have said is the best in all of college football. And these few pieces are a big reason why. We'll be right back for more Off the Edge here on Tide 100.9, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide sports.
At Northport Auto Supply, we understand there's nothing worse than a dead battery. So to keep this from happening, be sure you periodically check your battery, including the terminals for corrosion. And if you ever need help, then come by Northport Auto Supply and let our knowledgeable professionals check your battery for free. Northport Auto Supply has the area's largest inventory of batteries in stock, and we'll even install it for you at no charge.
Northport Auto Supply. Why go anywhere else?
Are you drowning in IRS tax debt?
I owe the IRS $37,000.
Get ready for a toll-free hotline. Take advantage of new IRS tax forgiveness programs that may protect you from IRS collection agencies. They have the power to garnish your wages, put liens on your property, and levy your bank account. Civic Tax Relief can help protect you from the IRS.
Civic Tax Relief basically represented me against the IRS, and by the time everything was completed, I didn't owe the IRS anything.
Find out about the Fresh Start program that is now available through Civic Tax Relief. Civic Tax Relief's special tax hotline can help you discover all the relief programs available for free.
I would recommend anyone who has a tax problem to contact Civic Tax Relief.
Just call 800-210-6779. 800-210-6779. Don't wait. Call now. 800-210-6779. 800-210-6779.
It's time for some straight talk. You've got real work to do, but everyone's sucking up the free Wi-Fi faster than a Mocha Choco double frap on ice. So be your own hotspot. Now with Straight Talk Wireless, get 10 gigs of hotspot data with the ultimate unlimited plan. Just $55 a month on America's largest and most dependable networks. You don't have to find a hotspot. You are the hotspot. Straight Talk Wireless.
No contract, no compromise. Compatible device required. See straighttalk.com. Follow Off the Edge on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube for live streams and instant analysis. Off the Edge with Jacob Harrison continues.
You know, I should just mute anything PFF on Twitter. Just anything that says PFF, all the accounts that I follow, just mute them. Because at this point, they've gotten pretty clickbaity. But I do think this one's a little bit interesting. Who will win the Heisman Trophy in 2021? They've got 4 of their top analysts. 2 say DJ Uiagalelei. 1 says Spencer Rattler. 1 says De'Aaron King. I got to say, I don't know who this PFF Seth dude is, but he's usually very, very wrong. De'Aaron King might not survive the Alabama Crimson Tide in the first weekend of September. Just saying. And one of the big reasons why is this defense that the Alabama Crimson Tide is bringing to college football. I mean, when you talk about a team that brings back 8 starters, only had 2 players drafted, one being a first-round prospect, another being a second-rounder. And we'll get to Dylan Moses and his situation a little bit later tonight. But you only lose 3 players like that, but you bring back the caliber prospects like Christian Harris, like Josh Jobe, like Malachi Moore, like Tim Smith, like Chris Allen, like Will Anderson. Bro, what are you supposed to do? How do you win a Heisman when that's your first game out of the gate, De'Aaron King? How do you do that? Because I promise you, Miami's been up. They've come up a long way. I believe it. They've done a good job. They've turned the ship around about 176 degrees. They've almost pulled a 180. Yeah. But they about to get knocked about 50 degrees back the other way. Because the Crimson Tide I mean, there's not an iceberg. Ain't going to sink your ship. We're a little bit nicer than we used to be. We ain't going to do you like USC and Florida State. But that wave is coming. De'Aaron King does not have any firepower or protection around him to get past the Crimson Tide like that, to go on and win a Heisman Trophy. And you're not winning a Heisman Trophy off 11 games when you get dominated by the Crimson Tide. I know we're 4 months out from that game. And it's big guy radio talk, right? But have you seen what these guys are capable of? Because all those names I just listed off, I didn't name many off the defensive line. Fidarian Mathis, anyone? I didn't name the back two safeties. Jordan Battle, Daniel Wright, anyone? Jalen Armour-Davis, who looked fantastic as the corner opposite of Josh Jobe. Come on, guys. I ain't even mentioned the biggest addition to this defense, Henry To'o. I said it at the top of the show. When I got home, I had to start doing some brainstorming for the show. And I turned on the tape on Henry To'o. I watched highlights, tried to get a positive idea of what's going on, because I ain't had all day to watch every snap of 2020. Time management, right? This dude has the closing speed of a mountain lion. It is unreal how quickly he closes the app from point A to point B, and the violence with which he arrives at point B. He isn't a kind tackler, right? Like, you know how when you tackle the quarterback and you kind of just have to wrap him up and kind of set him on the ground these days? You can't just pummel him. Yeah, it's not good for college football. Not good for football at all. Let that guy know that he's a football player. That ain't what Henry To'o does to anybody. This dude arrives with ill intent, but his speed is impeccable. Now, last week I talked about having versatility among your linebackers and how it kind of fit before To'o got here, because To'o is an athletic linebacker. He is a new age linebacker. He's not one of those big thumpers, which is kind of what Jalen Moody is. Great athlete in his own right. His strengths are as a big time run thumper. But watching the way Henry To'o plays the game, he plays like a thumper with the speed of like Ryan Shazier, Devin White, Devin Bush, these guys that are lightning fast. He plays like Christian Harris, but with a more dominant downhill force. And I think that helps with what I was trying to visualize for this defense moving forward, because at some point, somebody's got to innovate and perfect a defense that can stop the RPO. If we're ever going to balance this game back out, balance college football out to where dominant defenses can hang with dominant offenses. Because I preached it all last year during the football season, after the Ole Miss game and going into the Florida game, going into the Ohio State game. You're going to give up points to dominant offenses. You're going to give up points to pristine offenses. Those teams that have unstoppable players, because those players cannot be touched. Why do you give up the touchdowns and the points and the yards to guys like Kadarius Toney and to guys like the unicorn, the Atlanta Falcon, Kyle Pitts? Because you can't touch him. You can't do anything to him. After 5 yards, you got to let that guy go. So how do you combat that when there's an RPO element of these offensive linemen coming up 3-4 yards off the line of scrimmage, quarterback faking a handoff, and then being able to pull it and dump it over your linebackers? Well, maybe you have enough diversity in your linebackers to have one guy just shoot the gap violently and the other guy be able to cover those underneath slant routes, in routes, dig routes, those RPO patterns. And I think that's what Alabama's got. I don't know if that's how they employ it. That's just my idea of how it should go. That's what I would try to do to combat this new style of offense. I'm not a defensive mastermind. I play defense. I kind of understand how it works a little bit. But just thinking from a practical, logical standpoint, if you can back Christian Harris up a little bit on those runs, put him on the weak side, put Toto on the strong side, let Toto slam the gap and attack the run. And if it's not a run and that quarterback keeps it, he's on a blitz. Plain and simple. I know you got defensive play calls, but these RPOs are a beast that are difficult to just call a play against. Damn near impossible. And then you got Christian Harris covering those underneath routes. Maybe you got something. It's not foolproof, but I think it's a good place to start, especially when Henry Toto has the closing speed of a leopard about to take down a gazelle. It is ridiculous. After the show, tonight, tomorrow, sometime, get on YouTube and look up Henry Toto highlights and just marvel at what this guy is about to do. Because he didn't even have this kind of defensive help up front. Now he's got Fedarian Mathis and Tim Smith in front of him. DJ Dale. Come on, guy. LeBron Ray. Will Anderson and Chris Allen off the edges. Who's going to slow him down? You can't put a guard on him. There is not a guard in this game athletic enough to catch Henry Toto off of a delayed blitz. Another thing that I found so intriguing about his game was the dexterity in his feet. It seems like every step he takes is wildly intentional in the placement on the turf. He has supreme control over his body. And the most perfect example of this is the pick six that he had against South Carolina in the season opener last year. First of all, impeccable zone coverage to stay within closing speed, within a reasonable distance of his target in his zone, the crossing receiver. The receiver drops the pass, tips up, goes in the air. Toto's got incredible awareness, picks it off, and he starts breaking tackles. But he is on the hash. And I don't mean the hash inside the numbers. I mean the hash on the sideline. Almost the entire 32 yards that he takes this thing back. Tiptoeing the sideline like James Harrison in Super Bowl 43. But dealing with more trash than Harrison did in that game on his way to the end zone. But every step just seems so intent on where it lands. He is a super athlete to the extreme. And when you pair him up with these other guys, when you got 10 other guys out there that are super athletes at their position, I know this is Alabama. This is the norm. This is what we're used to. We're used to Alabama being that volatile on defense, that intent, that crisp. But this is another level. AJ Spur, I was listening back, doing some self-scouting, listening back to the conversation with AJ Spur from last week. And AJ was talking about how he had heard noise about how this could be the best defense in Alabama history under Nick Saban. And boy, them some shoes to fill. That ain't going to be easy. We're talking about some legendary players that have walked this campus since Nick Saban has gotten here. Legendary. But I'd stack this linebacker group up, all four of them, including the edge rushers. I'd stack them up to anybody right now. Because say what you will about Rolando McClain, Dante Hightower, CJ Mosley. They're a different breed of linebacker, okay? They're athletic in their own way for being 6'3", 240 pounds, being able to be sideline to sideline linebackers the way they were, Rashaan Evans, all these kind of guys. But they're still kind of out of the previous era of linebacker, right? Because even when I was in high school, the thought of a linebacker being 215, 220 pounds off ball, 6'1", 6'2", bro, play safety. What are you doing? Let somebody bigger handle those guards. Let somebody bigger get up in there and crush a fullback in the A-gap. Let somebody bigger scrape off a tackle on those zone stretch plays and hunt down a running back. Today's football says, nah, bro, just let him outrun all those fools. Ain't no fullbacks out there. These guards, they can't do it anymore. Just let them run around him and go headhunt and arrive with violence. You know who Henry Toto reminds me of? Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, the hard-hitting linebacker from Notre Dame. Expected to go in like the top 15, top 20 of the NFL draft this past year. Slipped down in the second round. Browns wisely trade up and go get the guy that can help remedy the problems that got them eliminated in the AFC playoffs last year against the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm telling you, Toto's got the goods, man. And harken back to the conversation since he announced his decision to transfer to Alabama. It's hard. I don't know who the hell you take off the field. Because as I talk about the depth on the front seven, you got 4 linebackers that cannot come off the field. They are too good. They are too athletic. They are too unstoppable. We call Will Anderson the Terminator. We got 4 machines out there playing linebacker. What are you supposed to do to combat that, SEC? I challenge you. I challenge the SEC with one returning star caliber quarterback in JT Daniels with the Georgia Bulldogs, the only other competent program in the SEC heading into 2021 with the way of the returns. I challenge you. Deal with these 4 linebackers that can't come off the field and are more athletic than anything you got on offense. Good luck. Good luck. We'll talk about Will Anderson and Josh Jobe a little bit later in the show. We'll get into the situation with Dylan Moses as well. The phone lines are open throughout the show. 205-342-9904. If you want to hop on the show and talk about these tremendous defenders, we'll get into that. You can always join us in the comment sections of the streams on all the brands, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Give us a like, share, follow, subscribe, all those fantabulous things on the social medias, and we'll appreciate that as well. You can join us in the comment section anytime throughout the show. We welcome the conversation here on Off the Edge. I'm Jacob Harrison. This is Tide 100.9, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide sports.
If you're in HR, you're probably wearing a lot of hats: recruiter, team builder, trainer, mediator, policymaker, and of course, paper pusher. But not anymore. Bamboo HR is the #1 HR software for small and medium businesses. It manages all your employee data easily and automates countless tasks so you can focus on people, not paperwork. Bamboo HR frees you from spreadsheets so you can do your real job, creating a great place to work. If the data shuffle and paperwork mountain have you ready to hang up all your hats, you're ready for Bamboo. If you handle HR records and paperwork, Bamboo HR is a dream. Let us free up your time and put your days of pushing paperwork behind you so you can focus on the people and making your company a great place to work for everyone. Try PC Magazine's top pick for HR software free today. Just go to bamboohr.com/panda. This is a limited offer only available to radio listeners at bamboohr.com/panda. That's bamboohr.com/panda.
Fear, guilt, indecision. These raw feelings are common when users witness an opioid overdose. As a bystander, fear and indecision may race through your mind, but it's vital that you call for help. Alabama's Good Samaritan law protects those who act in good faith in situations like an opioid overdose. Find out more about Alabama's Good Samaritan law at vitalalabama.com.
I need these boxes in bin 7. Oh, hello. Hi. I just wanted to call in and find out when.
Whitney's warehouse foreman just retired, and the replacement needs to move to fulfillment.
Hold on. Guys, can we get the dock cleared now?
Indeed can help her hire the people she needs.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. When you sponsor a job, you immediately get your short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job criteria. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
We aren't going anywhere. Off the Edge is available in the podcast center on Tide100.9.com.
Hello there. Welcome back into Off the Edge. I'm Jacob Harrison, your host. So glad you could be with us on a Monday night. We've been discussing some of the incredible athletes that are all over this Alabama Crimson Tide defense. But during the break, I was watching a video of Thomas Fletcher being welcomed into Carolina as the most recent draft pick for the Panthers, as a long snapper, bringing the total of Crimson Tide players selected in the 2021 NFL draft up to 11. And, the fit there and the discussion that they were kind of having made me think about another topic that I wanted to get into today. And just to break up the conversation on some of these defenders a little bit, y'all know I love Najee Harris. I have no choice but to love Najee Harris. And, I can drool all over the guy for being a Pittsburgh Steeler and all that. It doesn't matter. He's that damn good. Just because he went to my favorite team is irrelevant to the conversation of just how good of a football player he is and why he fits so well into today's NFL. No, he doesn't have that ridiculous breakaway speed. He doesn't have that type of getaway motor that makes, that makes other defenses kind of tremble in fear, right? You can't let him get in the open field. I mean, you can't let him get in the open field, period. You can't let any player that's good enough to be in the NFL do that. They're going to cause problems for you. But when it comes to Najee, there's just something different. And I think it comes down to his mental approach because he exudes such confidence. But I also think that it comes from his ability to just be a superior athlete to everybody on the field. Now, going into the draft, the reason I thought why I bought the noise that the Steelers love Najee Harris so much was because of the super athlete qualities that Najee brings to the table. This isn't a guy that's just a run-of-the-mill back. He's 6'2", 230 pounds and moves like a scat back and has the business to be doing it. He's got that kind of agility. He's got that kind of dexterity in his feet. He's got the ability to make you miss in 4 or 5 different fashions that most backs can't do. Most backs can only make you miss 1 or 2 ways. Most backs specialize in the way that they attack a defender. And it's not Najee Harris, man. He is versatile across the board. He can't hit a gap on the 20-yard line and take it to the house without being touched. Fine. He can break 5 or 6 tackles on the way, though. And let me tell you, Derrick Henry's got that kind of speed. And in the NFL, a lot of those big-time runs like that he has, he's got to break 3 or 4 tackles before he gets to the open field because he's big. And guess what? Everybody in the NFL fast, too. That's how it works. This ain't college football no more. This is the big boys. You going up against a dude that needs a paycheck this week, next month, and next year. He ain't just going to let you do whatever you want to do to him. But Najee Harris has the skills to do that. So what I want to do is play this video of the Steelers running backs coach, Eddie Faulkner, breaking down Najee Harris's film. And then after that, we're going to watch another video that kind of went viral with Najee in his first press conference after rookie minicamp. But here is Eddie Faulkner, the running backs coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers, breaking down some of Najee Harris's film. So if you're on the stream, you'll get to check this out in video form. But don't worry, if you're on the radio, you'll still get the gist of what Faulkner is talking about. Let's go, Tommy.
I pull up the tape, and the first thing you look at is like, okay, that's freaky. But he's been doing that since high school. The other thing you see, not just a guy leaving the ground and doing that, but a guy being fearless. That's what I see, is he's fearless. It's about him making plays for his team, winning one-on-one in the flat. And he routinely wins those confrontations in the flat. And then hurdle another one and stay in bounds over there. Vision. They're doing a good job right there of creating an edge right here for him to get outside of. But he feels this part running past the ball and is able to put his foot in the ground, get his feet up over trash, and then that burst right there to split 2 defenders to get to the next level is freaky. He finds ways to get the ball in the end zone. You see his patience. You see him get up to the feet of the lineman before he makes his cut. See how he's tight right there to all that movement? That's something natural. Like, you talk to your coach about it, but that's just a feel and a natural thing. There's no wasted space right there. And then that burst, again, that's freaky. Again, let me remind you, he's 6'2", 230 pounds. And, you know, he's a load getting downhill. And I always love to say, look at the speed of the film change right here. He's slow to the hole, and then he bursts through the hole. And when he sees it right there, gas. Sometimes you see backs go here and run out here, not gaining anything vertically. The first time he gets the opportunity, he's getting that ball back vertical up the field. And again, able to make guys miss in the second level. He's out here on the SEC logo right here as a receiver and has the ability to route people up and catch the ball and play within that space. He's not only has that capability, he does it as good as anybody, and he's 6'2", 230. If 5 was coming right here, he'd probably have him in protection. He knows he's hot, and he gets his head and eyes around right now, so the quarterback can get the ball on him. The ball's a little behind him, he makes a one-handed catch. And then again, the effort that he shows to get the ball in the end zone, he's a fun player to watch. He's
special. That's what he's going to say before that video cut him off. That video courtesy of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if you think I'm over gushing about Najee Harris, like, I'm not. A professional running backs coach, one who has coached greatness in Le'Veon Bell, one that has coached a great player in James Conner, gushing over Najee Harris and his freakish ability too. It's there. He's got the abilities to circumvent his weaknesses. And his one weakness isn't going to cost him that much. Le'Veon Bell couldn't do that stuff either. Breaking off 80-yard runs for touchdowns. There's not a lot of running backs that can do that. And about the only, I can think of 2 running backs the size of Najee Harris that could bust off 80-yard runs without being touched. Adrian Peterson and Derrick Henry. 2 of the most gifted backs of the past 20 years. I think he's in fine company to be elite and still not have to have the exact same qualities of what those guys have. Because how many other elite running backs have come through without the ability to do that? A lot. And a lot of those guys, your Alvin Kamara's, Christian McCaffrey types that can do that, they often do that out of the backfield in the passing game. But here's the thing. Najee Harris is athletic enough to get that done too. He lined up at wide receiver a lot at Alabama, believe it or not. He just didn't have many opportunities to catch the ball because they were beating the tar out of everybody. See, there's negatives that come to playing in Alabama. You don't get to show off everything because the Pittsburgh media hasn't been clued in yet. Some of these guys don't watch film. Who knew? Shocker. But Najee Harris brings back that Le'Veon Bell role to the Pittsburgh Steelers offense in a pretty serious way. Remember, not too long ago, Le'Veon Bell's the best running back in football, period. And then things just kind of went south with the contract problem. He'd probably still be at the top of the list if it wasn't for that. Najee Harris would be playing in Miami or in Jacksonville, I guess, since they want a wide receiver at running back too. With Travis Etienne lining up at wide receiver for the rookie minicamps. Everybody thinks that's so funny. Najee Harris doing the same thing in Pittsburgh. Harris has said it out of his mouth. Not even in situations where it's been reported. It's Najee saying it himself that he's been lining up outside receiver, slot receiver, catching passes out of the backfield, at a higher volume than what they do in the, on a normal basis for running backs. Which is the same thing the Steelers did with Le'Veon Bell. Line him up outside, give you a better guess at what's going on with the defense if they're in zone or man. And if Najee's got a good matchup, throw the ball to him. You dumb enough to go put a linebacker out there that runs a 4.5 40 on Najee but ain't half the athlete that he is? That's your problem. Here's the Pittsburgh Steelers media not understanding that Najee Harris has always been able to catch a football like that. Always.
We saw you today with a one-handed catch. Also nearly come down with one that was thrown behind.
You saw that?
I saw that. And then you almost caught one that was thrown behind.
You guys were here?
We were there watching, yeah.
Where are you guys at?
We were up on the balcony. But
man, I thought y'all was boosters. What the hell? That's crazy.
But so are those things that you feel like maybe 2 years ago you might not have been able to do that make those kind of plays? Is that why you went back to Alabama that last year to get better in that part of your game?
Bro, what? Where are you from? Did you always cover Pittsburgh Steelers?
Yeah.
God damn. Well, I always been catching the ball, man. The reason why I say it is because every time somebody
I'm talking about the one-handed catch, and you nearly caught the one behind.
I always do that.
Okay.
I always do that.
All right.
Not to brag or nothing, but it's like what the heck? Like, I mean, you think it wasn't luck? I can tell you that since y'all was watching. I'll do it again for you. Nah, I'm gonna get in trouble. But I mean, like it's not something I work on. It's just I've been doing that since like middle school. I mean, I got big hands, man. Man.
He's got the goods. He's got a perfect personality too, by the way. I can hear it now in the NFL. The Steelers fans on the Twitters going crazy. Oh, he runs his mouth too much. He's too loose with his words. He's having too much fun. He reminds me too much of Juju and Chase Claypool and all the fun that they have. Bro, this is a game. A child's game. He's confident in his abilities. He knows he can get the job done. That's half the battle in the NFL. There is no pressure on his shoulders. Despite being the next in a long line of incredible running backs to go through the Pittsburgh Steelers organization, whether I'm a fan or not, that's a big fact, and that's a lot of weight to carry on your back. Najee Harris gets the job done. He's gonna. Because he's got the confidence, he's got the skills, and he's got the know-how, and he's got the personality to win over a city, the personality to win over the NFL. That's half the battle, too. Najee Harris has got the goods, man. There's more than one reason to be a massive fan of Najee Harris, and it ain't got nothing to do with the fact that I believe black and gold. It ain't got nothing to do with the fact that I'm a Crimson Tide alum. That dude's special. That's all anybody needs to know about Najee Harris. We'll take a break. We'll come back, clean up, finish up the first hour of Off the Edge. Get prepared for hour number 2. I'm Jacob Harrison. This is Tide 100.9, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide Sports.
Do you feel vibrations when you step on your brake pedal? Is it taking you too long to come to a complete stop? Well, then it just might be time to replace your brakes. Don't wait for brake failure to cause an accident. Replace your brakes with high-quality brakes from Northport Auto Supply. Northport Auto Supply has the area's largest inventory of brakes in stock and will help you find the brakes that are best for your car.
Northport Auto Supply. Why go anywhere else?
Sorry to interrupt your jams, murder mystery podcasts, or motivational beach noises, but we got something else you might like to hear. It's called cash. That's the sound of an extra $250 after your first 10 deliveries with Uber Eats. That's right, an extra $250 on top of all the other cash you'll make during those first 10 deliveries. If that sounds good, visit t.uber.com/extra250. Uber Eats, deliver with us. Limited time offer, terms apply. See t.uber.com/extra250 for more details.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but thought it would be too difficult? Then try Babbel. Babbel starts by teaching you words and phrases that gradually get more complex. Soon, you're practicing short conversations. So in 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking a new language in a few weeks. Babbel is built around real life. It teaches you practical conversations that you will actually use. Babbel, language for life. Celebrating 10 million subscriptions sold. Now try Babbel for free. Just go to babbel.com today. That's BABBEL.com.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Just a chance of a few isolated showers tonight, otherwise mostly cloudy with a low at 66. Tomorrow, a mixture of clouds and sunshine, a small chance of an afternoon shower, the high 82. Wednesday, partly to mostly sunny, the high at 84. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 81 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
You're listening to Off the Edge on Tide 100.9.
Let's close up hour one of Off the Edge. I'm Jacob Harrison. This is Tide 100.9, your home for Alabama sports. Big thanks to Alabama Vintage for sponsoring the show. Be sure to go check out Charlie and the gang at 2210 University Boulevard under the Crimson Awning across from City Hall in the heart of downtown T-Town. In the second hour, we're going to dive into Josh Jobe, Will Anderson, the kind of impacts that they've had. Dylan Moses, the way that he fits in Jacksonville. We weren't able to get to him last week when we were running down some of the fits for the NFL players that were selected in the NFL draft. So we'll touch on him, his situation, everything to look forward to as far as him being a linebacker for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Do want to remind you here at the top of the hour that Alabama softball will play this Friday at 5 p.m. in the Rhodes House against Alabama State to start the regional action of the softball NCAA tournament. The Alabama Crimson Tide well on their way to potentially competing for a national championship. I think they've got the goods to get it done. Got to find a pitching rotation that works throughout this tournament and keep the bats heavy. Continue to game plan effectively around pitchers that are too afraid of Bailey Hemphill, which I think the effectiveness of the small ball efforts for this Crimson Tide offense in softball on the diamond should work out relatively well, I think. I think they've got a very, very strong chance of getting it done. In case you missed it, there was another in a short line of once proud Troy students to transfer to the University of Alabama for greater opportunity and success. Of course, the first was me. Nobody else ever did it. It was me. I'm the only one that ever transferred from Troy to Alabama to find massive success.
Really?
Really? That's cool.
Yeah, I made that part up. Nonetheless, Alabama has found a punter in Jack Martin. He might not be the punter, but he does bring in competition for Charlie Scott, Ty Pirine, and he brings a good attitude too, I think. And we got to hear from him on Southern Fried Sports earlier today on Tide 100.9. Travis Reier caught up with the recent Crimson Tide transfer from the Troy Trojans, from the Wiregrass to the Gump Grass for Jack Martin. He'll look to come in and compete for the punting job as well as the kickoff specialist job with Will Reichert. He's got the versatility to possibly be Will Reichert's backup for as far as place kickers go too. So, he's got the versatility to do it all, and he's got a competitor's mindset. If you want to hear what he had to say about it, you can go check out the article that I wrote breaking it down, and then listen to the conversation, Tide109.com. Right there on the front page, Jack Martin talking about his new home in T-Town. Also breaking news today, we might be one step closer to Deontay Wilder taking on Tyson Fury again. And let me just say, Tyson Fury, one of the baddest dudes on the planet. And what I saw him do to Deontay Wilder, what was that, like a year and a half ago?
I mean, it feels like 2020 was 5 years. But we watched that fight together. Remember,
we did.
It was me, you, your lovely wife, and Joe, and we were all just dumbfounded at what happened.
Dumbfounded. We couldn't believe what we were watching. If there's one guy I would never want to fight on the rebound, like I wouldn't want to fight. I don't want to fight anybody. Like I'm big, but I ain't tough like that. It's Deontay Wilder. Like, no, thank you. Deontay Wilder is the kind of guy to come back with a vengeance, come back and correct the mistakes. He's not a guy that's tasted defeat very many times in his life. And he ain't going to go down like that to Tyson Fury. So it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds when that fight takes place. You know, Tide 100.9 is going to stay all over the Deontay Wilder news. We love the guy. We appreciate the guy for what he is, the attention he has brought to our great city here in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. That'll close up the first hour of Off the Edge. I'm Jacob Harrison. Be sure to join us on the streams. You're just about to get out of your car. You just got home from a long day of work. Get in the house, chill out, get in your lazy boy, get on your phone, get on your tablet, get on your laptop, search up at Off the Edge 109, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Give us a like, give us a follow, give us a subscribe, and check out the show there. Phone lines are open throughout the show, 205-342-9904. You can always join the show that way, chop it up, get in on the analysis of this Crimson Tide defense and so much more throughout the show. I'm Jacob Harrison. This is Tide 100.9, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide sports. We'll be back with the second hour of Off the Edge next.
Has your timeshare dream turned into
800-210-6779. 800-210-6779.
Uptown Square Media Station. WTUG HD2 Northport. And W265CG Tuscaloosa. Tide 100.9. And streaming on the Tide 100.9 app. The pressure is on. Lights out. This is Off the Edge on Tide 100.9.
Quarterback back at the 5. Steps up. Gets drilled. Yes, sir. He gets mashed. And that is going to be the ball game. Alabama wins the ball game.
Streaming live on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and the Tide 100.9 app. Now, here is your host of Off the Edge, Jacob Harrison.
Hello there, welcome into the second hour of Off the Edge here on Tide 100.9, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide sports. My name is Jacob Harrison. So glad you could be with us on a beautiful Monday evening. It actually does feel pretty good. Like, I've got the fan on, I got the window open as usual, not a cloud in the sky through this window. It's beautiful, man. Love it. It's still the worst time of the year. I still had to start taking allergy medicine today because I stepped out of the house for 5 seconds. Total, taking my son to school this morning, and came back and was already sniffling. And thankfully, my wife had picked up the first box of Claritin this morning or last night. So I've got my meds for the spring to get me through. It should come with the territory. If you're born in the spring, I was born in April, then you should not have to have allergies, regardless of your genetics. Everybody else should have to suffer through. Like, come on, man. Like, it's my birthday season. I should be able to feel good about being 27, not miserable. What's it like to be able to see and to breathe? That's what I want to know. That's what I want to know. What's it like to be able to see and to breathe?
I feel like everybody asks that question at one point in their lives. What's it like to feel normal, be able to breathe, be able to see, to smell the sense of a fresh steak? Like, I mean, what is it?
I mean, like, I can't smell either because of these allergies. Like, I have the worst sense of smell. It's awful. What's it like to just have normal senses?
Honey, what does dinner smell like? Plastic.
Smoke. burnt flesh, right? To get serious, Mac Jones has another competing arm in the New England Patriots quarterback room. The Patriots have signed longtime journeyman quarterback Brian Hoyer back to the team. So there's one more arm for Mac Jones to compete with, and also one more mind to learn from. And to be honest, that's actually a pretty smart move, all things considered. Those guys that journey around the NFL are consistent third string options or backups to veteran quarterbacks. Brian Hoyer's seen a lot of stuff. He's been through the NFL. He's been a starter. He's been a backup. He's been cut. He's been praised. He's been through it. And that's a brilliant mind to put with Mac Jones, where Hoyer's main job is, of course, to compete. Hoyer's his own player, right? But for Hoyer to go in and with the mindset of teaching Mac Jones what it means to be a professional quarterback who has to compete for the job, and that allows Cam Newton and Mac Jones to just square up and go to head to head. But Cam doesn't have to worry about being Mac's mentor. Like, you don't want that out of your starting quarterback, right? Even if you just drafted his replacement, you don't want to have him thinking about the guy behind him, because for all intents and purposes, he's going to be the starting quarterback, like, eventually. But the incumbent is the guy that you need right now to kind of hold things, keep things in order, and still allow the team to be competitive. And that's the state of mind that Cam Newton needs to be in, not in the babysit mindset where I've got to teach this guy as a responsibility to the franchise, but I've also got to take care of me and mines and try to do what I can do on the field. So it's always an interesting deal when a team does draft a quarterback when they've got a starter that they feel confident in. So similar to what the San Francisco 49ers did with Trey Lance. That being said, when you've got a situation like what the New York Jets have, where it's Zach Wilson and nobody, there ain't nobody to lead that kid along, right? The head coach is a defensive mind. The offensive coordinator is a first-year offensive coordinator. And you don't have a veteran quarterback on the roster. That's a recipe for disaster. I hate to keep picking on Zach Wilson. But Silver Spoon Kid is going to have to put this team on his back. And it ain't going to be easy. Just be thankful that Mac Jones was never in the conversation for second overall. And Mac Jones, they had to worry about going to a situation like that. He goes to a situation in New England where you got coaches that know how to put players in positions to succeed, how to manage their players, put them on the field when they're ready, and know how to produce a winning organization too, especially when it's something so similar to what happens here at Alabama. Nick Saban and Bill Belichick, operate on the same wavelength. And there's a reason that Mac Jones wanted to be a New England Patriot, and that has a lot to do with it. That's a recipe for success. You don't want to have to combat the world to find success if you're smart. You can have that Baker Mayfield mentality, me against the world, give everybody the finger on your way to the top. It's not easy. That's why Baker Mayfield's under constant scrutiny. You ain't got to be a pushover either, because you'd be out of the league real fast. But I think for all intents and purposes, this was a good move by the Patriots to help out Mac Jones. I don't know if Mac Jones will be the first week 1 starter. He's got the ability to do it, but it'll be interesting to see how his career unfolds with the Patriots. No doubt. I think he's got the goods to get it done. So in the first hour, we talked about Henry To'oTo'o, what he brings to this defense, the athleticism that coupled with Christian Harris is going to create just a terrifying duo. And you pair him up with the rest of the front seven, man, that's real dangerous. It is terrifying. And as we progress through the second hour, we're going to talk about the best edge rusher in the SEC, Will Anderson. We'll discuss why he holds that moniker in my eyes. We'll also talk about Josh Jobe, who is set up to be the number 1 corner, the shutdown corner here for the Alabama Crimson Tide, what he brings to the table in that role as well. But before we get into that, we're going to start with Josh Jobe. But as we get into that, Alabama Vintage, AlabamaVTG.com. They bring you this show every single Monday and Friday night from 7 to 9. Charlie brought an exquisite idea down to T-Town, bringing you all the goods in Alabama Vintage apparel, sweatshirts, commemorative T-shirts, hats like that beautiful one that Tommy just showed off from the Atlanta Braves, jerseys, starter jackets, you name it, Charlie's got it. He also does tie-dye T-shirts too, on top of some of these commemorative T-shirts. All sorts of incredible items at Alabama Vintage. Be sure to follow him on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, but especially Instagram. That's where you can see those marquee items that get in and out of the stock as quickly as they came. That stock is constantly overturning, but if you see it on Facebook, on Instagram, that sucker's going to be gone if you don't claim it. So get on there and claim it. All sorts of apparel to flesh out your Alabama Crimson Tide style and fandom. 2210 University Boulevard, under the Crimson awning, across from City Hall. Let them know Off the Edge sent you. Now, Josh Jobe. He's been getting a little bit of love as a first rounder, which I didn't think was going to be the case, to be honest. I thought he was going to have an impeccable season to get up to that stage, right? He's got to sustain that. You still got to have an impeccable season to stand up to this defensive back class, which looks to be of historic proportions if you keep up with that sort of thing, at this stage in May. But he's in that group. Jim Nagy, the director of the Senior Bowl, who could very well be inviting Josh Jobe down to the Senior Bowl this year, said that he's the next great defensive back to come out of Alabama. Now, you think about that. A line that starts all the way back with Drake Kirkpatrick, includes guys like Marlon Humphrey, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Eddie Jackson. The list goes on and on and on and on of guys that just impeccable football players in the defensive backfield. Josh Jobe, he's got the talk around him. So I flipped on the tape and tried to figure out why. Because I know a lot of Crimson Tide fans have a negative opinion of Josh Jobe. A lot of people point to a late season matchup last year. I want to say it was the SEC championship. I could be totally wrong on that. But he reaches across the line of scrimmage and touches the opposing wide receiver before the snap of the ball. You can't do that. And a lot of people, like the most basic football fan knows that. So it's very easy to just point to that one play and be like, oh, that dude's an idiot, right? Straight off the bat. And that's not fair at all. Josh Jobe wouldn't be on the field if he was that dumb. You make mistakes. Like Cam Newton's one of the greatest football players ever, period, regardless of what your biases may be. He didn't dive on a football in the Super Bowl. Like, stuff happens, man. Sometimes you just make bad decisions in the moment. But when you turn on the tape and you look at some of the positive things that this guy does, he plays with a tenacity. Now, dating back to the Missouri game last year, where Will Anderson came onto the scene, Dylan Moses, Christian Harris played with such violence in that game. Ever since, I've kind of been on a kick for just wanting to see violent football within the framework of the rules. Because that's hard to do. That displays incredible body awareness and incredible body control to be able to hit somebody violently, make you reminisce over, the 1970s to the 1990s football, feel that type of football that made you fall in love with the sport because of the violence it instills, but still doing it in a way that respects the rules and respects the direction that the sport has gone in to protect its players. Josh Jobe is that kind of guy. He's not. You see a lot of these cornerbacks. One of the greatest cornerbacks of all time, Deion Sanders, hated to tackle openly. Told you he didn't want it. He didn't want to do it. He didn't like it. It wasn't part of his position. You know what I mean? Josh Jobe's not that kind of guy. He gets his nose dirty. He gets in. He stops the run. You run a curl pattern. You run a curl pattern on him. He's going to meet you when the ball meets you, and he's going to hurt you. He's got that kind of that kind of violence in him, that tick, that tenacity. Looking back, Devontae Smith 2 years ago was in a press conference and was telling reporters how in practice they'd have to tell Josh Jobe to chill out because this is practice. But in the same breath, he said, you want that out of practice too, though, because you know that if he practices like that, he's going to play like that. If he practices like that, he's going to be that kind of guy to 11. He's going to really turn it on. And I think that's what Josh Jobe did. And Josh Jobe had to have a Chihuahua mentality. Not pit bull, because Chihuahuas are actually mean. Chihuahuas actually will bite your face off. And they're the underdog. Pit bulls ain't no underdog. Pit bulls beat up everybody. Chihuahuas are underdogs. That's why they're so damn mean. Every team picked on Josh Jobe. You weren't going to throw at Patrick Surtain if you knew what was good for you, unless you had the matchup. That's why every time Patrick Surtain gave up a big play, it was against either someone you had absolutely zero expectations of being able to do it, or it was against one of the best in the game to do it. But with Josh Jobe, almost every single outside target went his way. And he had to fight that. He had to compete against that. oftentimes he would have to face number one wide receivers so that those guys would be able to pad their numbers a little bit because they couldn't get it done against Patrick Surtain. And Josh Jobe still did his job. Did he get out of position sometimes? Yeah. Did he make mistakes sometimes? Yeah. But was he able to instill some life in this defense too? Yeah. I take you to the opening kickoff of the Rose Bowl in Dallas against Notre Dame, where he, a starting defensive back, a starting corner, runs down the field, unopposed, unblocked, and lays that fighting Irish kid out, causes a fumble intentionally. Take it from the end zone view and watch the way he attacks the ball carrier. He's trying to force a fumble, and he did. He was trying to force that sucker and recover it. For some odd reason, there was somebody behind the returner, and he recovered it. Josh Jobe's got that mentality. He's got the goods. He is a bigger playmaker than people give him credit for. It might take some time to prove that to the Crimson Tide fan base, but I'm here to tell you right now, the way you feel about Josh Jobe right now is probably the way you're going to feel about Jalen Armour Davis all year, because I'm telling you right now, Alabama's going to crush Miami. And a lot of teams are going to look at that film and they're going to look at the playmakers on this defense and look at the proven commodities. Because even after all these years of target after target after target going Josh Jobe's way, you still don't want to have to be the guy, the quarterback that's making the decision between throwing to Josh Jobe and throwing to Jalen Armour Davis. Because you're going to choose JAD every single day of the week because he's the unproven commodity on the defense. One of very few. And you know that Josh Jobe has the capabilities to make a play. Or to inflict pain on your wide receiver to the point where he doesn't want to play this sport anymore because he's a diva and he don't want it. It's a possibility. That's the kind of mentality that Alabama plays defense with, is to come after you and make you know that they're there and make you not want to come back for more. That's excellent defensive play, and that's what the Alabama Crimson Tide brings to the 2021 season. That's what Miami has waiting for them on September 9th. Is a whole lot of I don't want it. So as the season moves forward, I'm going to be keeping a close eye on a lot of these guys on defense. That's when my eyes are going to perk up a little bit more. The offense is going to have a lot to prove to me. I think there's a lot of pieces there, and I'm excited to see them, but there's a reason I'm focusing on defense today, because there's just a lot of positives to take away. And I don't want to be negative tonight. I don't want to be that guy tonight. But when it comes to Josh Jobe, perk your eyes up a little bit. Pay attention to when the ball's thrown 28's way. I think you're going to see some special things happen. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We still got to talk about Will Anderson. Oh, boy. Y'all know I like to talk about Will Anderson. We'll talk about Dylan Moses, how he fits in Jacksonville. We might talk about one of his teammates, Tim Tebow, a little bit later, too. We might get into some of the special teams talk now that Jack Martin is in T-Town. All that and more right here. Off the Edge. Tide 100.9. Your home for Alabama sports. Tommy, I got bad news. Oh, no. I just realized I can see Monsters, Inc. on the TV in the Tug studio across the hall from where I'm sitting.
You're distracted.
So now I'm distracted by Mike Wazowski and Sully and Boo. I love that movie. Like, I love Pixar and Disney movies. Got 3 kids. I ain't got no choice but to love them, but I do. Regardless, I got to turn this way. I got to turn this way and not look at the TV.
Hold on, I got you. I'll go over there and turn it off for
Right. No, I'm kidding. Will Anderson, though, that'll keep my attention. Will Anderson will always keep my attention. If it sounds like I have a man crush on Will Anderson, it's because I do. Because that dude plays football in such a beautiful, violent way. From his first few snaps as a freshman against Missouri, this dude brought a new intensity to Alabama football that we had not seen on defense for years. Like, everybody wants to talk about Pete Golding and how bad his defenses are and the new brand of defense in football, especially college football. And that's all well and good. That's all fine. But at the end of the day, there's still a way to get it done. There's still a way to play exquisite defense in football and shut down opponents and make them quit. There's still a way to do it. And I think Will Anderson was one of the guys that helped prove that last year. As a freshman, a true freshman, 7 sacks last year, and should have had a lot more. I don't know what was going on as far as these offenses, these quarterbacks, and not getting sacked last year early in the season, but he went on a tear for the final half and dominated. I watch Will Anderson tape all the time because I'm convinced that this guy is going to be the best pass rusher to come out of the Nick Saban era. Period. I think he's got the kind of athleticism, the kind of build, and the kind of drive to be one of those Jadeveon Clowney, Myles Garrett, what Kayvon Thibodeau is going to be this year to the NFL draft. That can't miss pass rusher, right? Because when you consider all that he's got around him to help him, the 3 down linemen, the 2 linebackers behind him, Christian Harris, Henry To'oto, Fedarian Mathis, Tim Smith, LeBron Ray, to name off those linemen because they deserve it, DJ Dale. And you got Chris Allen on the other side, who had a phenomenal season last year too. Alabama, without a doubt, has 2 of the top 5 pass rushers in the SEC, period. And it's too far-fetched to say that Will Anderson is a top 5, maybe even a top 10 pass rusher in the NCAA overall going into the season. But by the time it's done, I think that's where we're at. But going in, without a doubt, the best pass rusher in the SEC is Will Anderson. He's a game changer. He's a difference maker. He gets off the line of scrimmage before anybody else, even when he's late. He makes great offensive tackles look foolish because he can attack you in a myriad of ways. He's not a one-trick pony. He's not just a bull rush guy. He's not just a hesitation guy. He's not just a speed guy. He's not just a rip guy. He's not just a swim guy. He's not just a spin guy. He's got it all. And that's just his pass rushing technique. What about the closing speed once you beat that tackle? That's a difference maker. Ask him. He should have had 6 or 7 more sacks, right? So he works on the closing speed, and that's how he's able to get to these quarterbacks late in the season, right? Because that's half the battle. Half the battle is getting past the lineman. The other half is getting to these quarterbacks in less than 3 seconds. You want to talk about how difficult it is to be a quarterback, how difficult it is to be a left tackle, how difficult it is to be a corner, a linebacker. Man, edge rusher's right up there. Because you got to be an athletic freak across from you. and a left tackle, a right tackle. These dudes are mountains with cat-like agility. And you're a lion. You got that same kind of agility, but you've got to be able to get around this mountain and to the quarterback in less than 3 seconds. Max. You never have more than 3 seconds. If you do, it's because your defensive backs really helps you out. And you got to give them some praise for helping you get that blue-collar sack where you had to just keep fighting and keep working for it. And he's got that in him. Unstoppable motor. Tenacity, the likes of which the SEC has not seen in some time. Not on a scale where it impacts the nation in college football. Now, look, there are other great SEC edge defenders. Georgia's going to have 3 of them, and the 2 most notable, Adam Anderson, Chris Nolan, they're great players, right? Chris Nolan's been was like a top 5 prospect, 5-star, and he's starting to come into his own. He's getting some praise and some looks for the first round next year. He's a junior, right? The younger Ojulari is down there at LSU. You hear some of these SEC analysts, they talk about LSU, they think they're on the way back. I think that's fair. And with a name like Ojulari, yeah, you probably got some goods. But here's the thing with all of those guys. They got to come off the field. Because they're either pass rush specialist, that's all they can do, or they've got to share reps. Now, there's other talented players at Alabama. Drew Sanders, Demoy Kennedy. You name it. I mean, there's guys behind him, behind Will Anderson, that deserve some playing time, that are that damn good and deserve to be in a rotation. The problem is that neither Chris Allen nor Will Anderson are capable of coming off the field because of the way that they play. Because they're both impeccable run defenders, they're both impeccable pass rushers, and neither one of them have a motor that quits. And what's terrifying is that one's better than the other, and the other, Chris Allen, is all SEC. Is top 5 in his own regard. But there's still a gap between him and Will Anderson. Because Will Anderson has got that special factor about him that makes him one of those generational like talents that you talk about with Jadeveon Clowney and with Myles Garrett and now with Kayvon Thibodeau. Kayvon Thibodeau. There we go. Ekiyor.
Nice.
Right. You know, I still forget Emil Ekiyor when I'm like naming off the offensive line. Like, the dude's incredible, but
that's still one of my favorite stories that we share together, where I'm sitting in my production room and then just out of nowhere I hear Ekiyor and I about jump out of my skin.
It's tough. Like, this job, not as easy as it sounds, man. You just forget. But nonetheless, I mean, when it comes to Will Anderson, what he brings to the table, it's unparalleled. There's nothing like him in the SEC right now, man. Nothing even close. If he could declare for the NFL draft in 2022, he'd be the first pass rusher off the board from the SEC, period. He wouldn't be the first pass rusher off the board because of Kayvon Thibodeau, who expects to be the first overall pick, period. But when you look ahead to the 2023 NFL draft, he's going to be competing with his quarterback, Bryce Young, and with DJ Uiagalelei, and who knows who else, to be the first overall pick. He's got that kind of get up. He's got that kind of danger in him. He's that good of a prospect. He's got the closing speed. He's got the moves. I mean, one of the most impressive things he did in that game against Missouri, where he introduced himself to the college football world, was Missouri running a read option play in his direction And instead of staying at the line of scrimmage as you're taught as an edge defender and allow the quarterback to read off of you, you take the quarterback, let the running back go inside into the mess. He just attacked it. He attacked the handoff. He blew up the running back, which forced the quarterback to pitch it early to the wide receiver that was in the slot, prepared for it, and caused a fumble without being statistically granted the forced fumble. He disrupted the play in such a magnitude that it forced a fumble. That's being a difference maker. When you can impact plays like that, when you can impact entire game plans like that, that's what makes you special. That's what makes you all world. And that's what Will Anderson brings to the table. And that's why he's so terrifying to the rest of the SEC. Now, I know there's good left tackles out, or excuse me, right tackles. There are good right tackles out there in the SEC. There ain't a single one out there that can compete with him. Not this year. Not a chance. And I can't wait to see him just eat these guys alive. He's got that kind of tenacity, that kind of bulldog in him. He's that damn good. And the rest of college football needs to be on notice when it comes to Will Anderson. We'll take a break. We'll come back. Talk about Dylan Moses. His fit with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Wrote a piece about him last week to line up with the show. It did not end up making the air. So we'll circle back to it. Talk about his fit with the Jacksonville Jaguars as an undrafted free agent linebacker down in Duval. Teaming up with Tim Tebow? We'll get into that too next on Off the Edge. Tide 100.9, your home for Alabama sports. Welcome back into Off the Edge. Got about 20 minutes to go. Last week, we talked about a lot of the fits in between our conversations with Tyler Martin and AJ Spur for some of the drafted players into the NFL. We were not able to get some of the later round picks, but the biggest news on day 3 of the NFL draft, what feels like so long ago, 2.5 weeks ago, was Dylan Moses, of course, going undrafted. Totally unexpected, totally out of left field. I mean, there were people that still thought that he could potentially go as high as the 3rd, 4th round. I thought 5th or 6th was probably closer to his range. And then if we got into the 7th round and he hadn't been picked yet, then we might see a situation where he chooses not to be drafted and instead opts to pick the team to go to by being an undrafted free agent. Especially when you consider, now I hadn't thought of this at the time, admittedly, but when you consider the fact that he had the insurance policy on himself, which is supposedly around $12 million. And if you don't remember, that insurance policy had a big reason to do with why he returned to Tuscaloosa for a senior season. His father is a lawyer, and his father handled that insurance policy all the way down the line to try to figure out, how Moses could be protected should he lose his value. Because while he was able to start and finish every game of the 2020 season, when it was reported, not reported, when he said it out loud in a press conference at the first Alabama Pro Day that he played the entire season on a torn meniscus, or not the entire season, but after the Missouri game, sometime in that time frame, there were teams that just took him off their board that would not draft him. And that's, it sucks, but what are you supposed to do if you're an NFL team? You only get so many draft picks, and a lot of times when you take these guys in the draft that have these ridiculous knee injuries like Dylan Moses has had, and it's just tough to spend a pick on them because they might not ever see the field. I don't think that's the situation with Dylan Moses, considering the fact that he played all last year with a torn meniscus. You just don't want to risk having to deal with more and more injuries. So that being said, Dylan Moses signs with the Jaguars for $70,000 in base salary, or excuse me, $70,000 total, $50,000 which is base salary. But he's not going to see any of that until he's off of the non-football injury list, which, while yes, he did sustain his injury because of football, the non-football injury list in the NFL pertains to players that are injured away from the franchise that they are signed to. So look at what has happened with Denver Broncos right tackle Jawan James. He tore his Achilles training away from the team on his own, and therefore the Broncos were not incentivized to pay him at all, and they cut him just 2 days ago, right? So the NFI, the non-football injury list, is a way for the NFL to protect itself against players that get injured away from the organization. Strictly business, right? But luckily, Dylan Moses does have that insurance policy. No matter how much it paid him, he's in a position to take care of himself and recoup his value despite, not being drafted. I mean, at the end of the day, when it's between being a 7th round pick and being, having your future not completely left up to you, or deciding to not have your name called out on TV despite being, a well-known commodity for the past 7 years. This dude was on ESPN, the magazine's cover at the age of 15. Like, he's always been a big deal. And sometimes stuff just happens. In that situation, sometimes it's best just to take control of your destiny and go where you want to go. That being said, he goes to Jacksonville, which is coached by Urban Meyer. They've got a brand new defensive coordinator, a first-time defensive coordinator in the NFL, Joe Cullen, who comes over from the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens traditionally run a 3-4 scheme, very similar to what Nick Saban runs here at Alabama. But they'll be hybrid. They'll work in a hybrid style between a 3-4 and a 4-3, because the Jaguars have traditionally run a 4-3, and they have a lot of players that fit just that scheme. So they'll be switching back and forth in kind of a hybrid style, using players where they work in. That being said, would not expect Dylan Moses to be a starter this year at all. Biggest reason why, as long as these two stay healthy, Joe Schobert, Miles Jack, two of the three highest paid players on the team, period. Miles Jack is probably the most popular player on the team. Joe Schobert was a big-time free agency investment last year. Both are locked up for many seasons to come. Jack until 2025, Schobert until 2024. And then there's more depth behind them. Shaquille Quarterman out of Miami was a 4th-round pick last year. Quincy Williams, who's the brother of Quinnen Williams, was a 3rd-round pick in 2019. So there's a lot of linebackers with a lot of skill there for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So it's not going to be easy by any means for Dylan Moses. Now, that being said, making the Jacksonville Jaguars, not the end goal. Making a team, period, is the end goal. The Jaguars provide an excellent opportunity for him because of their history in dealing with undrafted free agents and finding great value out of them. One of the greatest players in team history for the Jaguars was Jimmy Smith, who is an undrafted free agent wide receiver who holds practically every record for a wide receiver for that team. So the Jaguars have a history of being able to find these kind of guys. Calais Campbell, Keenan McCardell, AJ Bouye, who's still one of the top corners in the NFL, Malik Jackson, who is a highly paid free agent to the Denver Broncos. There's an opportunity here for Dylan Moses to create an opportunity for himself that works. The Jaguars are a team that will be in the limelight again soon because of Trevor Lawrence. And the team's not going to be bad because of the players. If it under succeeds, it'll be because of Urban Meyer, and Urban Meyer will be out. Whether or not he can get this thing done, still wildly unknown. There's no positive frame of reference for him to be successful, y'all. Like to go from coaching college football for as long as he did to just coaching the NFL, there's not a lineage of success there for Urban Meyer. So in the face of that, if it doesn't work out, Urban will be the first to go. And I think he's aware of that. I don't think he's going to have a very long leash. Trevor Lawrence is there to make this team successful right now and for the next 17, 18, 19 years. Because Trevor's that good. And they drafted pretty well, I would say. But they've got to handle that. And they've got to handle that quickly. Now, I don't know if signing Tim Tebow out the gate is really the way to go about that. We'll find out. I don't know if Tim Tebow is going to make the team. But I do think it's really weird to sign a 33-year-old player that you know is just going to bring all this attention to you. It would be like signing Colin Kaepernick right now. All it's going to do is put all the eyes on you. Everywhere I go, every time I turn on ESPN, I see Tim Tebow's freaking name, and I see him scoring that playoff touchdown against the Steelers. I don't dislike Tim Tebow. And in fact, I have no problems with him finding this opportunity. He's made his name for himself. He was the one that built the reputation of being one of the greatest college football players ever, period. He's the one that built this brand for himself. And at that high level of a profession, it's about who you know, not about what you are. That's why he was able to go into baseball out of nowhere. That's why he got opportunity after opportunity after opportunity after he flamed out with the Jets, where he was undoubtedly not given a shot to be successful. But that's where Dylan Moses' opportunity comes into play. Because he can just move silently. The eyes will not be on him until he finds the success that he has the capability of bringing out for himself in the NFL. The sky's the limit for that guy. He is that incredible. He can be that great. It's just a matter of putting it into motion now. And Dylan Moses has got the goods to make the Jaguars, to compete, to be part of a rotation, to get on the field and contribute. He's not a special teamer for life like a lot of undrafted free agents. He's not a backup for life like a lot of undrafted free agents. He's not a camp body. He is a starting caliber NFL player. He's got to get past the knee issues, and he's got to take advantage of his opportunities, and he is fully capable of doing that. If you want to read more about Dylan Moses, how he became a Jaguar, what's next for him, you can check out side109.com. Find an article that I wrote, click on my name, scroll down a little bit, you'll find it. Not too deep down, but it kind of give you all the information you need to know about Dylan Moses, kind of his story and how it's unfolded up until this point and why it's a good opportunity for him down in Duval County, Jacksonville, Florida. We'll come back and we'll wrap up the show. Second hour, almost done. Off the Edge. I'm Jacob Harrison. This is your home for Alabama Crimson Tide Sports. Tide 100.9. Welcome back into Off the Edge. I'm Jacob Harrison. We're closing her down on a Monday night. We've had a lot of fun dissecting some of the key pieces of the 2021 Crimson Tide defense, why Will Anderson is that beast, why Josh Jobe is ready to take on the role of being the number one shutdown corner, and why Henry To'oTo'o is such a massive piece in creating this defense to be so dynamic in this new age of offense that revolves around RPOs in the college edition of the game. There's a lot to glean from what this defense is capable of throughout the offseason. We'll dive into all these players and what they bring, what they need to step up and do. We'll go player by player, much like we did tonight throughout the offseason. We'll do the same offensively and with the special teams as well, especially now that Jack Martin's in town. We got a little tea time here in Tuscaloosa from the Troy Trojans. Excited to see what Jack Martin brings to the table. Again, that story, the Dylan Moses story, so much more. Tide109.com. Go check out all the awesome articles there. I put in a lot of work there. Joe Gaither, the Iron Man, puts in a lot of work. Ludman, Bryant Horn, Mason Woods, Michael, like all of us pour our hearts and souls into these articles. It's content that we feel you deserve. You need that kind of outlet that brings you Crimson Tide news and analysis on a daily, regular basis. And we appreciate doing that for you. We'd appreciate it if you hung out, bookmarked Tide109.com to get all the latest news and analysis, all things Alabama sports. Big thanks to Tommy for producing. Big thanks to Alabama Vintage for sponsoring the show. Be sure to go give them some love on the Instagram account at Alabama VTG. Check them out in store 2210 University Boulevard under the Crimson Awning across from City Hall. We've had a lot of fun here tonight. If you missed anything, you can always check us back out on the podcast center, Tide109.com, or on the SoundCloud page as well. Be sure to download that Tide 100.9 app, and you can take the show anywhere you go, as well as like, follow, and subscribe to the show's account at Off the Edge 109, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. No show Friday because of baseball and softball, basically. We'll see you Saturday for the Saturday Morning Showdown and next Monday for another edition of Off the Edge. Until then, roll Tide.